She said the thing for her in this whole experience was like not going what she was used to, and she said everyone who she dated always was a safe feeling, but she was never in love with them. So she couldn't say
She literally told me basically the same thing, but opposite.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. We are going to discuss the new season of Love is Blind. That's right, we are now on season 5. The last season brought us tons of girl on girl crime, and I was worried that they were going to kind of milk that again this season since it had all of us talking about it. But they took a turn. This season, the men are the big bad. They are the villains of the season. Start by saying that this is in no way a man-hating channel. I am in no way trying to start a gender war. I am just going to recap the mess that we've witnessed. But of course, not all villains are created equal. So we're going to rate them from bad to worse. I want to know if you agree in the comments or if you would change the order. Let's start. Villain number 3 is Izzy. Izzy is a handsome guy and he knows it. He was quite the charmer in the pods. Everyone at one point was listing him as top of their list. And he was having a good old time in the pods, but he was determined to narrow down his list so that he could really focus in and find his wife. So far so good. Love the plan, love the strategy. See that he's really vibing with Johnny and Stacy. Both girls are questionable. Pretty girls, but questionable. Stacy wasn't my fave at first because she was giving me pick-me vibes. She was giving very much I'm not like other girls vibes. What I liked about her was that she knew exactly what she wanted. She wasn't here to mess around. And I loved her directness because that's what you're there for. You're there to, funnel things out and find out who you're going to marry. So I respected that. I was also a big fan that she didn't talk about the other girls when they were in the women's quarters. There were moments, where some girls were really being territorial and she would just keep quiet even though she knew that Izzy was number 1 on her list. And she didn't talk about people until she found out that they were talking about her. If anything, I love that she was very affirming of when the girls were having a rough time. So I'll say that about Stacy. Stacy and Izzy had a very playful relationship, while him and Johnny had a more emotional connection. They shared a lot more vulnerable moments. He shared with him just how much trouble she's had in love. And she revealed that she had been married. He revealed that he had been engaged. So they were really trying to get it right this time. He and Johnny were having a conversation about wanting to feel prioritized, wanting to feel important as they were getting ready to narrow people down. Johnny herself was debating between Izzy and this other guy named Chris, who she felt at the time that she was connecting with Izzy like he might have been a little boring, a predictable choice. And with Izzy, she felt passion. So she dumps Chris. And it's down to the wire now. So Izzy has a conversation with Stacy and he's like, look, I need emotional connection. I need to feel like we can go there. And I have someone that I'm going to those levels with, but I really like you and we're not going there. And Stacy stood her ground saying that he has to earn that. She doesn't just give that part of herself right away. It takes some time. So to be patient. And that wasn't the answer that he wanted. Didn't really say much in the moment. And that's something with Izzy that he seems like a person that kind of like bottles things in. So at this point, I'm thinking that he's going to go with Johnny. And I want to know what you think at this moment. Did you think that he was going to go with Johnny? So he has a conversation with Johnny again. And they're vibing. And again, they're in their bag. They're like discussing such deep things. And they're again stressing the fact that they really want to get it right. And she talks about how it's important for her to feel like she's chosen the right person because she's learned a lot from her past. And she reveals that she feels like the one time she's ever been truly in love was with an ex-boyfriend that she had that happened to be an addict. And his addiction was one of the main reason why they broke up. And they broke up while she still loved him, but she couldn't handle it anymore. And I guess years went on. She got into a marriage. And while in that marriage, she received a message from someone letting her know that her ex-boyfriend had passed away due to an overdose. And that affected her marriage. And through that experience, she realized that she wasn't in love with her ex-husband and that she still hadn't healed from that ex-boyfriend. And she's sharing this to explain her journey. And he is completely like stunned by it. The best way to describe it is that he can't handle it. And this is a common thread with a lot of the men and women, everybody in this show, is that they seek honesty, they ask for honesty, but they can't handle it, and they also can't give it. So it's something in this season. He maybe feels like, well, how do I know that you're gonna pick me, and then realize later that you don't actually care for me, you don't love me, and then you're gonna leave me. And I get that could be a risk to getting with her, but this girl said that this happened 7 years ago, that she's changed from 7 years ago, and she knows herself a lot more, and she's told him in every way possible that she wants him. And he just completely shut down, to the point that she just had to leave the room because he was a brick wall. Ended up being the catalyst of them breaking up. He ended up choosing Stacy, and I don't know how promising that relationship is. They have very different upbringings, very different lifestyles, very different expectations about what their future should look like, even down to silverware. A different emotional connection. It's gonna take some work. But at this point, he's fully in with Stacy, right? As we know, after they're in the pods, then they go to the honeymoon in Mexico, and then they are out in the real world. And of course, the show is so messy, and I love it. In the real world, they have a mingle where everyone that was in the pods is invited. So it's like a little mixer. And so this is the first time that a lot of people are seeing each other in person. Through this mingling, we find out that Johnny and Chris is the guy that was her second choice, end up getting back together. And they're like dating, they're happy. Yeah, they're all drinking and mingling. Izzy is drunk and literally just like cannot stop looking at Johnny because he's pissed because while they were in the pods, he found out that Johnny might or might have not said something similar to him as she said to Chris. Izzy corners this girl.
To me, was you told him one thing and you told me the opposite. I'm glad I made the decision that I made. I heard a lot of sketchy shit about you. Because honestly, it's not just me. Everyone thinks you're sketchy as and this is not to bash you.
You don't know my story, and y'all are the sketchiest ones, so I'm done with this. You aren't even listening to me.
And starts berating her, calling her fake, telling her that no one likes her, saying that she's a liar, that she messed with Chris's mind, that poor guy. Just he's being a little sassy. He's being a little mean girl. He just kept drilling her with statements to the point that she was like, "Are you gonna let me speak? Because you've been talking for 10 minutes." God bless her, because I would have just walked off. And she eventually did. But it took her a second because she really wanted to stand up for herself. But he was so determined to not listen to her that it didn't matter. After she walked off, he proceeds to go to Stacy and he's grinning from ear to ear, being like, "Yeah, I railed into her."
Dude, you're so sketchy. Like, I was railing her.
How are you a grown man being giddy because you made some girl cry? Like, you shouldn't care. If you're so happy with Stacy, why are you so stressed about what your ex might have said or not? It was revolting. Izzy was acting on ego, let's be honest. He was so salty that the girl that he dumped, instead of going off and being sad because she missed out on him, she has a happy ending of her own. And he didn't expect that. That wasn't part of the plan. He wanted to have both girls. He wanted to have the upper hand to choose. That whole thing was just nasty work. Go focus on your fiance with your paper plates and your crusty, dusty sneakers on the bed. I cannot. We're off to villain number 2, JP. Now, JP, I did not see this coming. Let's go on the journey together. In every season of Love is Blind, there's a couple that hits it off immediately, and we're all cheering for them. They're usually the first reveal. That was Taylor and JP. Immediately, I was happy for them. They seemed like a good fit. She was a kindergarten teacher. He was a firefighter. I was like, this is very middle America cuteness, very Southern white people cuteness. I'm into it. Good for them. They just felt like a homey couple, you know? They had the reveal, and it was a little awkward, but I expect it to be awkward because you've been sharing all these intimate details with someone behind a wall, and all of a sudden, they're in front of you and you're trying to connect a voice to a face. That's a little strange. And you've been doing this for hours on end. So the awkwardness on a first meeting, I wasn't stressed about it for them. Taylor was. Taylor apparently cried like 2 times that night because she was like, does he like me? And I'm like, baby girl, deep breaths. But she was right. They get to Mexico and Taylor tells us that they're having a hard time connecting. They're just not getting the same magic that they had in the pods. Things start to get painful. I'm specifically thinking about that scene of them in the pool where they're talking and he's just like, He barely gives her a word. Whenever they have a dead, like, silent moment in their conversation, they just kiss, but then he kisses her like a woodpecker. So, and then he backs away really quickly. Was anyone else bothered by those kisses? I was like, stop kissing her like that. It was like, and then he would have like, I just can't. Poor girl was working overtime. It's like he had tumbleweeds in his brain. I was just like, please say something. Then we see them in a scene in a room, and he's like, I don't like to be forced to talk. And I was like, you know what? He's right. Like, sure, you're on a reality TV show, but you shouldn't be forced to talk if it doesn't come natural. At this point, I felt bad for both of them. I was like, maybe he's just a shy guy and it takes him some time. Like, it's going to take him a little longer. Maybe she should, be a little understanding. Maybe sit with him in silence. Maybe try to seduce your man. I was like on his side. And she just kept bringing up the awkwardness. And I was like, babes, it's not going to leave if you keep naming it all the time. Like, you named it once. Try to work around it. I was on his side. They even went on that fun date where at the end he was like, don't give up on me. And that, I was like, this might be a turning point for them. Like, he's saying something that's familiar from the things that he used to say in the pods. So, okay, like, progress. It wasn't enough for my girl Taylor. They're in the bed. I think maybe, I don't know if it's the day after or that same night. She's fresh off the shower. She must have been stressed in the shower because she's in bed and she's like, it's just not right. We're not connecting. She's like, I don't know what to do. We're behind. And she was really confronted with that when they hung out with the rest of the couples on the beach. And everyone was like on top of each other, just being super affectionate. And her and JP were like separate. So again, she tells him, she's like, why is it so awkward? So he tells her they aren't connecting because she keeps harping on the awkwardness and she won't let it go. And she hasn't been able to let it go since the first day. And I was like, yeah, I agree. Like, she hasn't let it go. Like, damn. Like, but both of you, like, need to put a little more, like, do you want to be here or what? They go back and forth about who's to blame. And then finally, JP spills the beans. And I wish he would have just stayed quiet. JP says that he's been awkward because she's fake. Fake, you ask? Yeah, when we had the reveal, you just had all that on your face. Makeup?
I feel like if you would have presented yourself like this, without any makeup, it would have been better. It felt like you were fake. You had caked up face.
Yeah, and the lashes, and it's just, that's fake. I don't like that. I like how you look now. And she's like, but you didn't know what I looked like before you saw me. And he's like, yeah, well, you look better like this now, but you were fake. And she's like, so you've been quiet this whole time because I wore makeup that one time? And I haven't worn makeup the rest of the time, and you still didn't talk to me. So because of that one time that I wore makeup when we met, you decided that you didn't want to talk to me?
I walked out, it you up so bad that you don't know how to communicate now. When I go out, I'm gonna wear makeup.
Then cover your face up. Cover all your beautiful face up.
I wanna go out and wear makeup. I'm not wearing it. I haven't worn it in days. But if I want to.
I know it. It's been great.
He's like, yeah, I don't like that. And she's like, I'm gonna wear makeup whenever the hell I want to wear makeup. The whole time I'm watching this and I'm just like, I wish this man never opened his mouth, because how dare. The caucasity of it all is just, this man-child has been mute the whole time. And she was visibly hurt because she's been asking him over and over again. And she was visibly hurt, and he just laughed. And he could have laughed because it was an uncomfortable conversation to have. But it should have been a conversation, if at all, that was going to happen day one. For him to punish her like that, people are allowed to have preferences. But he punished her because she did something that he did not like once, instead of just getting it out there. That logic doesn't make sense, because she has had a bare face the whole time that they've been there, aside from that reveal day, and he still has been an ass to her. So his logic is pretty backwards. He's still an ass, makeup or no makeup. There was no change. And in the reveal, she had makeup and he was kissing her and, like being all up on her. And he was still doing the same when she didn't have, it just doesn't make sense. She could have judged him for his bad breath when he was trying to kiss her. She could have judged him for his choice of wardrobe that only consists of the American flag. She could have done that, but she didn't. She could have called him out about not showering. She would have to ask him a few times, are you going to shower? The audacity of it all. He's talking about her bare face like it's supposed to be some kind of compliment. How dare you? She did that because she wanted to feel good. Anyway, they meet the next day, and she tells him, I don't think we should be engaged, and I absolutely do not want to live with you. It's what he deserves. And again, I'm stressing, having the preference isn't the problem. The problem is the lack of communication and the silently punishing your partner. That's cruel and highly problematic. And that is why he's villain number 2. Villain number 1 and public enemy number 1. I would dare to say that he's up there with Bartiz. Uche. Remember what I said about people on the show not being able to receive honesty? Well, Uche is one of those people that has the audacity to demand honesty, not be able to handle it, and certainly not be able to give it. Let's get into it. I need to get comfortable. This Uche segment is like its own telenovela, honestly. And it's fitting because there's a Puerto Rican in it. He's a lawyer and also owns a software company. Aaliyah's 28, an ICU nurse. She's nerdy, cute. They're both black, beautiful. Both vibing and eager to have a partner. She specifically mentions wanting to have a partner that's going to lead her and inspire her to reach her best potential. And she sees that in Uche. And they're really cute at first. She's going off about, when I get married, I want a woman cave, be able to play my guitar. I want to be able to paint. I want to be able to write poetry. And he reveals that he used to do poetry. He used to do spoken word in college. And she's losing it over that. She's like, oh my God, I love this man. Uche is so sure of it. He's like, I'm questioning it because she's like, is this too good to be true? She's telling him, let's ask each other the tough questions. Affirms her, and he tells her, we're going to leave the pods together. So they start to discuss their deal breakers, and he stresses that honesty is really important for him. He doesn't want a liar. And she said, yeah, I value that too. Like, it's very important for me to be able to trust someone. I'm not saying people are perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. I've done things in the past. And he's like, what things? And she's like, things, like I'm not perfect. And then he like honed into that. And he was like, have you cheated?
Done things. Have you ever cheated in a relationship?
Once, 2 years ago.
Oh boy, you're a recent cheater.
Not like that, Uche. Don't.
She was like, 2 years ago is not recent. She was like, I really tried in that relationship. It was due to like lack of sexual compatibility. We had conversations. I tried everything, and I didn't want to leave the relationship.
That relationship, I really, really tried, and I did everything in the morally correct ways.
And why didn't you just break up with him? Did you tell him about it?
No.
The way Uche, it was like the light in his eyes changed. He was like determined to make her feel like crap in that moment. When she revealed that piece of truth, he like drilled into her in a way that I was like, do you want to fight? She was trying so hard to prove that she's changed, and he was like, no, you haven't. 2 years ago is not a long time. She was like, I've done a lot of reflection, and it's not something that I would do again. It was the only time I've ever cheated. And he was just like not even listening. And he asked her, he was like, did you admit to him that you cheated? And she was like, no, I didn't want to hurt him. And he was like, no, I think you didn't tell him for you, because you would be forced to confront the truth. And it was just the tone of it all, like that self-righteousness, that patronizing aspect of it, that I was like, do not talk down to her.
I've cheated in a relationship, right? But when I did cheat, it was when I was 18 years old and only kissed someone.
Not to blame Aaliyah, but I felt for her in this moment. But if I was her girlfriend, I would have shook her. She did that thing that, and I've done it too, when you think so highly of someone that even when they're being shitty to you, you're like, but I respect him, so like what he's saying must be right, even if it's not. Instead of telling him in that moment that she felt judged, a little puppy just being like, yeah, like, you're right, like I guess I didn't do it because of that, and just like became so small. And like he beat her up so much verbally, making her relive shame that she had already processed but was sharing because she felt safe with him, that it completely backfired. He had to leave the room. And it's just so funny that he was like still talking, and I'm like, sir, how do you not expect her to leave the room? Basically made her feel like it's over between y'all, because he made it so clear that he thought of her differently. Like the image of her that he had was tainted. I'm like, sir, this was 2 years ago. You're acting like she cheated on you. It was bad. But it gets worse. We're just at the beginning. If you're still watching this video, could you give me a like? Leave me a comment. Tell me how much you like me. Tell me how much you want to be my friends. I'm kidding. Let's go back to the video. In the women's quarter, Aaliyah is being comforted by her friends in the pods named Lydia. Lydia is a lot and a key protagonist in the story. I was so happy when I saw Lydia, because I was like, oh my god, like finally a Latina that more Afrocentric features. Amazing representation. I'm torn if I'm really happy about this kind of representation. Stay tuned. She's a geologist. She has a beautiful, thick Puerto Rican accent. She's takes up a lot of space energetically. She has big emotions. Lydia desperately wants to be loved, and she gives the vibe of she'll be with anybody as long as they're obsessed with her, you know? Lets all her intrusive thoughts out. So anyway, Lydia's comforting Aaliyah in the women's quarters. And she's basically, saying all the things. He's holding your past against you, then he's not the man of your dreams. He's not the man that you should have a future with. He doesn't know what he has in front of him. And you know why I know? Because I see a lot of myself in you. You are me. And it's his loss. And when I first heard that conversation, I was like, this is a little much. Also, why are you making this moment about you? This is about your friend. It was very weird, but a lot of the things that Lydia did with people, I know that they're under under a lot of duress during this process. I know that they spent hours and hours on end talking with people, but in every scene, she was attached to Aaliyah. It's almost like she wanted to be under Aaliyah's skin. It was a lot. And like, I have a best friend who I just started hugging maybe a few years ago, but she's been my friend since the 4th grade. So for these two women to be hugging in the way that they were hugging after only like a week together, I think that's a lot. What do you think? Aaliyah and Uche had a follow-up meeting post the crazy fight. She tells him, I was feeling judged in our conversation, and that's not something that I want in my future husband. I want to be able to disclose all parts of myself and still feel loved and not feel like if I share something that's a little too different, even though it's in my past, that you're going to leave me. And he surprisingly was very receptive, and he was just like, I came at you really wrong because I dealt with someone really dishonest in my past, and I just, I have that trauma, but I shouldn't have let it out on you. And he admits that he's when he likes someone because of his trauma, he almost tries to sabotage it. He tries to find something wrong in the situation. And so she forgave him because she's madly in love with this guy. And they're together. We see some clips of them like with bantering, and it's really cute. But then one meeting, there's a tone shift.
One of my dates, on the first day, I walked into the pod, and it is a girl that I have dated. It's Lydia.
It was a huge mind twister. They both kept this secret from her. Lydia, think about it. Lydia knew about this all along while she was friendly with Aaliyah. Lydia has been saying sly shit the whole time. That whole, I see myself in you, you are me. It's sinister. I love a messy Netflix. They add a flashback of the pod date when Uche walks into the room and he says his name, and Lydia's like, no way, like I know who you are. And she starts like saying things about him. She mentions Kobe, his dog, and he's like, who is this? Because he did not remember her. And she says, Lydia, and he's like, no way. And it looked like there was still something there because she was like, oh, so what do you want to do? Like, I think this is a sign that we should try again. And he's like, it goes against the experiment though, because we already know we already know what we look like. So we should just go on with the experiment basically and not date. So Lydia wanted to try again with Uche. Uche rejected her. And she knew because the girls shared in the quarters who they were interested in. So she knew. Once Aaliyah told her that Uche was her number one, I don't know if she was besties with Aaliyah because of it, but it feels all types of wrong. So they go back to present day where Uche is still talking to Aaliyah, and he tells her that they dated for a few months, and he broke up with Lydia due to lack of compatibility. He was very brief because the news in itself was a lot. But my first reason for calling him a villain and public enemy number one is that he was so self-righteous about Aaliyah's reveal. He made her feel like she was the scummiest person in the world for cheating 2.5 years ago. But he had also cheated in his past. He just felt like he was on a higher moral ground because he told the person. And so he was like berating her for revealing that. But this whole time, he was keeping an atomic bomb of a secret from her. And the thing is, like, he wasn't protecting her. He might have been protecting the experiment, maybe it was his contract, but he wasn't protecting Aaliyah. Because just like in the male quarters, in the women quarters, these women are constantly together. So you're not protecting your relationship with Aaliyah, and you're not protecting her because you don't know what seeds Lydia is planting in Aaliyah's brain. All of it is just a mess. So she goes to the break room. Lydia sees her, immediately goes to her to hug. And Aaliyah tells her, I know. And Lydia's like, you know? And they're hugging still. And Lydia is letting all her intrusive thoughts out. Again, she's making this about her instead of consoling her friend. Reassuring her friend, being like, listen, I dated him last year. We're not together. Please feel safe with me. Like, I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt the experiment, but it has nothing to do with our history. No, 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 no. If she planted seeds before, she planted pots and just endless pots of plants. She said, listen, this is my garden. I live here. Did I go too far with that? Basically says that Uche wasn't ready for a girl like her when they were together. So it means that he's really grown. Since he can't have Lydia, he got the next best thing, which is Aaliyah, because Aaliyah and Lydia are the same person. And so she kept saying things like, yeah, you and me, we're the same. So he's now with me, but you. And Aaliyah's like, uh-huh. Uh-huh. And I'm just like, smack her. No, don't smack. She just would not stop talking, and Aaliyah kept telling her, like, I really don't want to know. I really don't want to know that. But she kept saying things like, oh, I love his dog Kobe. His dog Kobe loves me.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I guess I think I fell for him.
Yeah.
He is OCD. You're gonna love Kobe.
I know. I had a dog named Kobe.
He pisses himself every time he sees me. Oh, and his house is dope.
Yeah. I really didn't want to know too much.
I met his friends. They love me. He drives a Tesla. And she just kept going and going. And I'm like, there's no way that you're not doing this on purpose. So while Uche is villain number 1, Lydia is 1A. She's under him. She was having word vomit. She says, we slept together 3 months ago, but it was nothing. It's just a hypocrisy for me because she started from saying nothing at all to saying too much. And really, all of these things should have came from Uche. This is a lot to reel from, right? Like, now, not only was Uche dishonest, but she was uncomfortable because she's like, Lydia is now my friend. If she's saying all these nasty things that, like, are obviously hurtful. And I guess one of the days, like, I guess maybe that same night, but we didn't see it on camera, they were having a conversation, and Aaliyah was joking, being like, well, if I don't marry Uche, you can have him. And apparently Lydia did not like that. She said, F you. And my thing is, you were saying just a minute ago that I am you and you are me. So now me saying that you could have him is not funny anymore? This resulted in Aaliyah leaving the experiment, which is something that I did not expect. And I love the way this was edited. Uche went into the room and he was like, hello. And there was silence. He was like, Aaliyah, nothing. And then the producers come in being like, Aaliyah has decided to leave the experiment. And I was like, you know what, Aaliyah? I too would not like to be stuck with my boyfriend's ex. So there's that. Producer got her on the phone and he was berating her again, basically saying, like, you let her get in the middle of us. And he was not once thinking about how uncomfortable she would be. Should Aaliyah have set stronger boundaries? Absolutely. But I don't blame her for leaving. And he could have had that opportunity to be like, you know what? Like, this experiment has been tainted and it's partly my fault. Let's figure this out of here. But instead, he continued to do the thing that he did in the first argument, which was berating her, telling her that she basically is weak for not being able to handle that kind of pressure. And I'm just like, sir, you kept a huge secret. This isn't light. And just because you had one conversation over it doesn't mean that she should be over it. I just didn't appreciate that he was berating her for her choosing to protect herself in a very toxic situation. And he was like, yeah, you're protecting yourself because you're selfish. It's like, okay. Like, she was stuck with his ex day in, day out. Could you handle that? What would you guys have done in that situation? It gets worse. Aaliyah and Uche meet up in the real world, and she apologizes for letting the pressure get to her, which she shouldn't have done. She doesn't have to apologize for that. And this was a perfect opportunity, if he really loved her, to be like, you know what? We're outside of the experiment, but his logic was that the relationship is the experiment, and so he decided not to move forward with her. Sure, you've gone through this experience on TV together, but in the large scheme of your life, you only know this person for like 3 weeks. Move on, because these kind of secrets are not cool. And Uche proves to be even more evil in the Lydia mayhem part of this. And this is the final part of his villain story so far. So as I mentioned before, they had a little mingling situation with the main cast and the pod squad. Lydia at this point is engaged. She's 30 years old. She's engaged to a 24-year-old. And Uche's out for blood, right? Because in his mind, he's like, I need to talk to Lydia because she sabotaged my relationship. He had previously said that he didn't want to reveal things about Lydia because he was trying to protect her and he didn't want to seem like the guy that talked shit about his ex. But he had revealed that Lydia was going through his things and that he received messages from people being like, yo, this girl's looking through my stories. Like, she's basically stalking me because she thinks I'm in connection with you. And he also said that, like, she has sent him a picture once of his house being like, I see you. All of those things are crazy, right? And they appear crazy and they're believable because Lydia is such a out there person. And I believe that she did those things. But he's posing these things as she did this unprovoked. Mind you, Lydia is drunk, having a good time with her little 24-year-old. She's having a good old time. And so Uche's confronting her, being like, so I want to know, like, is it that you want to get back with me? Like, what's, like, I guess we need to talk about our relationship because you haven't healed from it. And she's like, what do you want to talk about? And he starts, like, showing her screenshots of the people, like, screenshotting her name and being like, look, she's stalking me. And she's like, is this a joke? And he's painting her out to be psycho, like super. And it's believable. But this is the thing. One fatal flaw of men, and I love y'all, but this is a fatal flaw, is that y'all have used the term psycho and crazy for women so much that y'all are the boys who've cried wolf. It's no longer believable. We've caught on that y'all usually call women crazy or psycho when you've done something and they're reacting to it. And Lydia revealed, and she was going off, that one, she was in a very vulnerable moment while they were in a relationship, and she found out that he had been cheating. So she did go through, and she admitted, she was like, yeah, I did go through your messages.
Knows what happened really between us. He knows.
Do you want to tell me about the sexting?
He slept with a girl when he was dating with me, and then had the nerve to judge Aaliyah when she told her about her past.
Because you were cheating on me. And you're not about to spin this. And he did the thing that I hate where he's like, doesn't yell, but he thinks he's better because he's not yelling at you. And he's just like talking like very matter of fact. But what he's saying is off the wall. in the driveway. She was like, we were on the phone together and I did that. I was driving by your house and I sent you. You knew why I sent it. And so that's when I was like, oh, like he's just trying to paint a particular picture because he's a hypocrite. People get crazy when they've been betrayed. And he's milking the moment because it's believable that she would be crazy. Because she is so very much in your face. Because she is very expressive. But that doesn't mean she's crazy. Does she make other questionable choices? He's playing a lot with the illusion of it all. Because he's so well spoken. And because he's such a good package. But sir, these women are the prize. And you missed out. It's funny because in trying to villainize these women, he ended up becoming the biggest villain of them all. Let me know what you think in the comments. What was the biggest moment for you? What was the one that you couldn't stop talking about with your friends? I hope to see you in the next one.